Hey there, how's it going? It's MiffedLuke here. My name is Luke, and today we are going to talk about what it's like organising to meet with people like me who are, call it what you like, who are differently wired, neurodiverse, things like that. You know, I want to socialise with my friends, as people do, but that can definitely bring its challenges. I am slightly learning disabled. I have ASD and dyspraxia. Independent travelling, I can't really do it too well. Buses, for instance, I don't know where to get on, I don't know where to get off. A similar thing with trains, especially with all those complicated timetables. Don't forget, they cover much wider ranges than buses do, so you can much more easily get lost on a train. And even just walking around, it's like I walk out the door, I don't know where to go. Though to be fair, I am starting to get more familiar with my local area. So when I travel, I need someone there with me. And that's usually my parents. So because my parents are my carers and in effect my transport, I don't only need to check the availability of me and my friends, but my parents as well. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, if I'm relying on my parents for travelling, does this mean that my parents need to be there with me when I'm meeting up with my friends? And of the time, that depends. For example, the parents of my friends might feel that my friends need support when they are out and about. So think of like a town centre or even a bowling alley. Those can definitely bring their challenges. I try my best to be independent, but it does depend on the friends I'm meeting with. If my friend will have a carer with them, then my mum will probably be there with me as well. Before meeting a friend, my mum will often do a practice run or two with me first. Let's take a cafe for instance. So do we have to find a table and wait to be served? Or do we have to go up to the counter? And if so, where do we queue? And do they expect you to know what you want to order before you get to the front? Even if you haven't had time to read the tiny, convoluted menu on the wall behind the counter? And by the way, I'm not a brilliant reader, so I won't always understand what the options are. And don't give me one of those deals with fries or something. I can't understand those. So I like to use two of my friends as examples. I'm going to start with friend number one. Friend number one I have known for years now. We play video games with each other all the time. And we bonded over video games. I met him at school. My parents and his parent know each other. Friend number two, I've only known her for around a year. We only see each other once a week, if that, at an organised activity class. There are other people about, we might not always get the chance to socialise. And the parents don't know each other. Sometimes we see each other at the disability disco, which is in a nightclub, but man is it loud. There is quite a difference with these two situations when it comes to organising to meet. Friend number one is a bit similar to me in the sense that he always needs to have a parent there with him. In this case, it's usually his dad. Whether we're shopping for video games, going to London, even if he's at my house, his dad is always there. So he can't be like dropped off or anything. We usually organise to meet with each other when we are playing video games. I will usually ask my parents when a date would work. I will then ask my friend if this date would work. My friend would then ask his dad if this date would work. His dad would then tell my friend if this date would work. My friend would then tell me if this date would work, and then I'll tell my parents if that date would work. Good luck keeping up with all of that. Now, let's talk about friend number two. So one day, I asked if she'd like to meet up sometime, and she seemed interested, but she'd like to speak to her mum about it. As she seemed interested, I asked if she'd like to exchange contacts to suss out the details, and she wanted to speak to her mum about that as well. All this, by the way, I can completely understand. We've only known each other for a year, the parents don't know each other too well, and we hadn't even exchanged contacts by that point. I can totally relate when it comes to making conclusions about bigger things like exchanging contacts with someone for the first time. Then I would definitely speak to my mum about things like this as well. And then we didn't see each other for 2 weeks. The next time we saw each other was at the disability disco, which takes place in a nightclub. A very noisy nightclub, where you can't even hear your own voice, no matter how loudly you shout. And here we were, trying to exchange contacts and make arrangements to meet. We had to leave the dance floor in the end and go to a quieter spot, which seemed to be outside the toilets. Anyways, we managed to sort it out, and her mum thought it was adorable that I suggested we meet at a garden centre. Well, about that, I thought it would be nice to meet her in a place that I knew well, that seemed safe. And I kinda knew how the coffee shop works, though it's kinda complicated. With the tentative arrangements made, me and my friend did a bit of messaging back and forth to set it all up. At one point, my mum told me to message to say that my mum would be in the garden centre as well, just not with us. And I was having a little bit of a debate with my mum about that. Well, I don't know why I'd messaged my friend this information. What difference does it make? So, reluctantly and under pressure, I messaged my friend about this, and she responded almost straight away, telling me to thank my mum. On reflection, maybe my friend and her parents were worried about leaving us there, and were glad that my parents were around. So, the day arrived, our parents got to meet each other, her parents went out shopping, my parents were around, trying really hard not to bump into us and cramp my style, which they almost did. Differently wired, non-neurotypicals, whatever you want to call us, we may need extra support to do normal things, like socialising with our friends. I have friends who can take the buses, order themselves food and drinks in a cafe, and find their way around our local town centre. When I'm out with my friends, sometimes they are forgetful, sometimes they leave stuff behind, sometimes they struggle with payments, sometimes they find it difficult to cross the roads. I also have friends who speak at a volume that might be considered too loud, and they also might speak about things that could be considered inappropriate. Hey, I'm not saying that I'm perfect in that regard, but being realistic, is anyone? I should say that when I meet up with friend number 1, we live in London about 10 miles apart. London's the slowest city in the world to travel in. Yay, first place us. Here's your gold medal. This means meeting friend number 1 could require 1.5 hours in the car, or 3 different trains, or 2 different buses. This definitely makes it more difficult for where and when we can meet. There was a time when I met a friend in central London and my parents weren't right next to me, although my mum was in the area. This is a friend I met through YouTube, and she knew what was going on. It was just so nice to be in central London with a friend more independently. That was a very big step for me. But it went really well, so to that friend, thank you so much. Good. Another adventure of me and friend number 1 is going to Leicester Square in London the Friday before Christmas. Do you know what it's like in Leicester Square the Friday before Christmas? I think our parents needed support that night, not just us. There were police around, drunk people falling over, a woman came up to me and started talking. It definitely didn't help that I had a big pizza, cookie dough pudding and Oreo milkshake that night. I was trying not to throw up on the way back, travelling through the crowds. I must have looked quite drunk. In contrast to friend number 1, I'm about to meet up with another friend of mine for the very first time, and we have known each other for around 15 years. We both live locally as well, giving us more flexibility where and when we can meet up. He could take the bus on his own, so we would just meet at the local high street. My mum and his mum have known each other since we were in primary school. It's much more reassuring. In this video, I put a lot of emphasis on the role of parents and carers to make this possible. And I'm in my mid-20s now. Let's be realistic, having that level of support just isn't possible for everyone. On one hand, I have friends with more complex needs who require support from their carers, from their parents. Otherwise, they just can't show up. On the other hand, I have friends who are much more independent, who can drive themselves around, and these issues aren't as relevant. Everyone's different. I hope you have found some helpful insights here, and I'll be back with more videos around these themes coming soon. Thank you for watching, it's MiffedLuke here. My name is Luke, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye everyone.